Hello, AI Tinkerers. I'm Joe, and this is our global stage one shot where we bring people from the community who are doing bleeding edge stuff, and we take a little peek under the hood and try to inspire and enable you to use their innovations in your projects. So today I'm here with someone who's spent the last 8 or 9 months building out the state-of-the-art real-time avatar technology that can actually use LLMs and have a conversation. It's fascinating technology, and I'd like to introduce you, Brian from Tavus. Hi, Brian.
Hey, I'm Brian. Brad. Joe and I met at a hackathon recently. We were both judging the competition through a mutual connection with Daily.co's Quinn. And we just had a little chat about the cutting edge of technology. That's something that we're both really interested in.
I got the feeling that you were just like headphones on, going for it, and had just finished this. And a lot of teams were using it in their projects, and it was really the most real-time, fastest thing I'd seen in the space, and also as an API. I immediately became very interested. But why don't you, who's this behind you?
Yeah, so this is Brad, and he is a conversational video interface on top of an LLM. He has a personality that I've given him some context so that he knows who he is.
Bring him in.
Yeah, let me bring him in. Hey, Brad, how's it going?
Hey there. It's nice to be on the podcast with all of you guys.
Cool. What were you?
Without that into what I do day to day. I'm a conversation facilitator, which means I help analyze conversations to understand people's preferences and create a personalized dialogue experience.
All right, cool. So we're going to have this meeting, and you're just going to chime in when it's appropriate to help out in the conversation.
Just let me know when there's a lull in the conversation, or if anything comes up that I will verify or add some depth.
Okay, so you're just quickly diving in under the hood. Like, what is happening end to end? Like, we utter some audio.
Yeah.
And then what are the kind of high level steps all the way back to get a response?
Yeah, so we're actually taking in both audio and video.
Oh, yeah.
So he can see the room.
Okay.
He can hear us. And there are multiple steps that go into processing that incoming audio video and then returning a rendered audio video feed of Brad.
Yeah.
So under the hood, there is a stage that we're calling speech gating. Some people call it voice activity detection, ASR. It's a combination of multiple things that are determining when the user is speaking, when the user is not speaking, and then determining when the user's turn is done, and then transcribing what the user said. So like we're the user in this case.
Yep.
As we're talking, he's trying to figure out when are we talking and when are we done talking.
Okay.
And then at the end, figuring out what we said.
Okay.
That's the first phase.
Okay. And then in the middle, there's an LLM, and you're using what in this case?
So this is on top of Llama. Brad is, but you can use any LLM.
Okay.
With our API. I've had good experiences with it. I like 7dB a lot, but the thing is our 7dB account is currently being used for multiple things, and we don't have it set up for scale yet. It's just experimental. So I didn't want to overwhelm.
Yeah, I got it. I noticed like the other day when I was using it, it's pretty real time in terms of like, there aren't a lot of long delays. Like he responds, or any of the ones you choose respond very quickly. It's impressive.
Thanks.
What are the, I guess, what are the, that's, as you put it to me, those are what you spent a lot of the time, 8 months on, was just latency, right?
Yeah. My main focus was really first and foremost, I think all of us had a goal of getting under 1 second utterance to utterance. Now we also wanted it to be natural. We also wanted other qualities to come into play, but really we held the line on utterance to utterance. Yeah. Pretty hard.
It's amazing. The speed really makes it feel less uncanny valley. It makes it feel more usable. Like it's a big difference than things I've tried before.
Well, research shows, and we this is something we found. I found several papers that alluded to normal human conversation and what the utterance to utterance time should be. The modal for a very good conversation where people are really vibing or getting along is 250 milliseconds.
Oh, wow.
Between, in many conversations, 1 second is quite normal. Anything over 2 seconds is almost completely absurd.
Yeah.
Human conversation.
That's like a drag. It's going to make you frustrated almost if you're trying to have a conversation like that.
And then often that people interrupt each other.
Yeah.
It's actually the case that more often than not, people are actually interrupting each other.
Yeah.
And little gaps. Or they're both speaking at the same time.
Yeah.
So the goal we set was to get below a second.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges, like that you have to surmount to do that?
I would say the biggest challenges were in finding models and providers that had really low latency.
Interesting.
So everything from ASR, which we're using an open source model on ASR,
What is it?
VAD. So we have a couple different ones. Yeah, we have something we call Tavus Advanced, and currently that's either Whisper or some other more accurate model than that.
Hmm.
We also have Tavus Turbo, which currently is either Parakeet, and those faster models have an incredibly fast real-time factor. So they're made to transcribe like 10 minutes of audio in under a second,
Oh, wow.
but the accuracy is a little bit lower.
Okay. And then there's a new model that came out today. I don't know if you saw, was it Pete Warden just released a model this morning that's like a very low, it'll run on Raspberry Pi and it'll do, I guess there's a buffer in Whisper of 30 seconds that it assumes. And if you can break that, then you can get a much faster return. If you're doing less than 10-second transcripts, would be perfect for this type of thing. So it's interesting that there's things coming out all the time that are open source and could make it even faster.
On the journey here, we've changed that ASR multiple times, and we'll change it again, which is why we're calling them Tavus Turbo and Tavus Advanced.
That makes sense.
I've got it up on screen here.
Yeah. And I see there's a bunch of endpoints for like creating a persona or creating the background of the conversation, creating the context, the stuff that's going to be like one-time configuration. And then there are other APIs for like, how do I hook into like, if I want to create like an avatar kiosk for like a fast food restaurant, and now I got to place an order, where would that tool call go?
Yeah, so there are really two categories here. One is creating the conversation itself, which is this instance that we're talking to. The other one is creating the persona.
Okay.
And the custom LLM layer inside of the persona is where tools can be exposed.
And so basically you have a way to configure which LLM you're using, and then I would just need to provide an interface that looks like an LLM, but in fact is going off and doing tool calls or doing whatever I want in my custom world. Okay, so it's a very elegant solution for making it totally configurable.
Yeah, and we provide not only that, but we have other ways to interact with the replica sort of asynchronously. So say if you wanted not only to have the replica responding to user prompts and audio, you could send it
like a webhook or just another interface in to sort of give it context or something?
Yeah, other interface in. We call
Wow.
it interactions.
Okay.
So it allows you to have the bot sort of act autonomously outside of the conversation.
Got it.
And like, it could be like, hey, Brian, actually, you just got an email if you want to.
That's cool. The kind of ambient use case is pretty cool. I mean, especially if you have it, like maybe it's looking over your shoulder at your screen and trying to figure out when it can be helpful and then saying, hey, would you like me to help?
Or like if it's at a kiosk and movie,
Yeah.
like actually it could announce like showtime for
Yeah.
Spider-Man,
Right.
everybody head into the theater.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be really easy to build based on how the APIs are set up. I noticed tons of teams at the hackathon were using it in their projects, and they were really cool examples. The thing that was unexpected delight was like, if you're talking to something that's fast, that's an unexpected delight. It's more important than you would think if you just thought about it without experiencing it. And when you're talking to something and then it's doing something for visual, like controlling a map or building a slide deck on the fly that's illustrating what it's talking about or a story or whatever, that's incredible useful user interaction mode. Like it's more powerful than you would think by just talking about it.
I think on first thought, you might wonder like, why do we need this?
Yeah.
But I think when you try it and it works really well and it responds quickly and it's contextual and it's actually telling you what you think it should or giving you some useful information, it's not just the information itself that is helpful, but also the fact that it's a person telling it to you.
Yeah.
Somehow that,
Yeah.
for me, it triggers something internal, and especially the first few times, I was like, whoa, this is way different.
Yeah. I mean, especially if the thing really if I can trust it enough, we're talking about in the future, when it's learned about me, it has more of my context and I can trust it, Think about it like 1Password I trust with my passwords. If I had a virtual avatar character that I trusted with lots of my context, I can imagine a world where just like basic stuff like form filling goes away because I'm there, but it's doing the work, even at that level. But if I can see it's doing the right work, I feel better about it. And it's alleviating me that little pain.
Yeah.
But
It's really like, I mean, like in the days of say DOS or
Yeah.
this pure command line, you could achieve all kinds of things with it. But when UX came around, like with the first Mac and early Windows, it was more comfortable.
yeah,
It felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
You weren't as afraid that something would go wrong. And I think in the future, you'll have these replicas holding your hand.
Yeah.
Processes, and you can talk to it. It will have verbal and physical cues for when it's going to do something so that you know when it's going to take some action, and it will request confirmation, things like that. It'll just be more comfortable.
Mhm. Did you show the bit of the API? Yeah, that's the API where you can set your base URL to your LLM, and that's basically your hook to go do whatever.
So you can essentially set up your own custom
Yeah.
LLM under the hood.
It's funny,
These are
but if you want to do custom interactions, you need to do that, right?
it's one way to do it. We also have events that so you can listen for those as well. A lot you can do with that. This is a way that complies with the OpenAI API spec, which you can provide tools, so you can actually specify which tools you want to pass through.
Got it. That's very convenient. It sort of assumes like, hey, you've already built a wrapper app. Now you can actually make it an avatar and interactive. When you do function calling in a live scenario, it adds a ton of latency because to do function calling, you've got a request to the API with an instruction. It determines that you need to use a function. Then you have to run the function. Then you have to call the API again and get a response to show the user. And that's going to come back, do all the audio stuff. And then it's going to increase latency based on just the fastest case. That's going to add another 800 milliseconds, let's say. And then you're now above that 1 second. You're in the 1 to 2 where it's annoying. What are the tricks yet developed for that problem? How do you contend with making an app that's delightful but also doing stuff?
So the problem that you're talking about is that with a more sophisticated LLM that's doing lookups, database lookups, that's doing some tool calling in the background, it's going to take longer. And we've exposed a couple interactions, one namely the text echo interaction, which allows someone to essentially back channel early response. So in that case, you could, as you're doing this background work, you can asynchronously send out the back channel. And so you could do something like having a smaller LLM running in your background job that is just handling like quick responses, like, hey, hold on a second. And you can prompt it in line to say like, hey, we're going to do a thinking job.
Yeah.
It's like thinking fast and slow is how one of our engineers talked about.
Yeah.
And so it's like, let's do a thinking job. The short that says, hey, we're working on this.
Yeah, it's almost like a new paradigm for application experiences design, where you might have to think about in this conversational interaction I'm having with a user, there's a goal or set of goals, and there's data that has to be gathered and acted on. And then how can we naturally sequence that so it's a good experience? If that makes sense.
If you talk to a human and you ask them some really complicated question and they didn't have the entire compressed inside their brain, they would say, let me get back to you on that or something.
Just say, I'll take a note immediately and I'll get back to you later.
And then it can have that drop. It can have long running processes that take minutes in the background and go on. And then when it gets to the result, it can asynchronously go or thread that into the conversation later on and go, smart. Hey, actually, the thing we were talking about earlier, I got the data on that. In the future, maybe it can pull up a chart.
Yeah.
But here's the chart that shows exactly, or a graph that shows exactly what you're asking.
Yeah. So right now, are these design principles documented anywhere? I mean, you're supporting them in the API that you could kick off a job or get into the conversation later. But that's going to be up to me as the application developer to go use those APIs. And the best practices around that are sort of, it's emerging.
They're emerging. We are having internal hackathons at the moment to build these ourselves and to expose examples. We put a couple examples, very basic, up of using like a custom LLM, but we haven't done so far as to add back yet.
Okay.
What like at the hackathon, a couple of we're experimenting with that.
Oh, cool. Which projects?
So I think on the one where the maps, they were
The hackathon?
they were talking about that. I'm not sure whether they implemented because I haven't
Yeah.
dug into their source code.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Was used it with, I mean, they only had 2 days to hack, so of course, not surprised that they didn't get. There was another one where one of the participants was building a sort of like very higher function brain behind, and he already had this as his own project. He was asking questions about how to do this kind of stuff.
You have to jump in and play with new technology, and then you discover new problems and challenges and ideas and opportunities along the way. That's the part of fun of tinkering and building in that way. So voice, as it gets faster and the recognition gets better and the price goes down on the base stuff, the demand is there, it turns out, right? It's a convenient thing. Where are you seeing for when you add the avatar component in, like things that come to mind for me are like education. I don't know that I'd want an avatar at this point in time representing me in sales. Cold outreach in sales already feels kind of bad, even when it's automated, right? Even when it's a human, it feels bad, rude, right? With if they put an avatar, it's even more like, come on, no effort scaled thing. At some point, it'll cross the threshold where you won't know it's not a human and it's actually an awesome human. There's good sales and bad sales. Good sales helps you. It'll never work there, but I guess what I'm asking is, where is it working today? Where do you see it going? Where are you finding surprising traction? Like, what are the people using your platform in the early incarnation of this real time? Where are you seeing the exciting use cases emerge?
So I guess what you're asking about is like, where is it being used and where do I see it be? Where are the emerging business? Traditionally, sales has been really good. We've used video, generate video for sales and seen this amazing uptick.
Like, what's a specific use case? Give me the scenario.
So they'll send out like an automated email with
Uh-huh.
video in it.
But it's addressing the target by name and their company in context, and people will engage with that.
People engage like a 60% click-through rate.
Wow.
Like that's like
Whoa.
normal click-through rate is going to be like in the 10%. And with the video that's personalized,
Whoa. Okay.
much more. That
Wow.
would be the early excitement about this kind of stuff. You don't know yet,
Yeah.
but that definitely has been consistent with people who have been.
Any verticals in particular?
I don't recall what the verticals are. I mean, we have quite a few verticals using our async product, which is the longer product Tavus has had for several years.
I know one of them is like selling door to door, and then they have a very high quality product.
Okay. And that product is basically offline generative video, one shot to a finished product that's high fidelity, beautiful, and totally personalized. And you can do it at scale programmatically. But it's not this real time thing.
I think that is like the high fidelity, personalized video that's really focused on helping you specifically.
Yeah. So sales, what about education? Anything there?
Yeah, I think education, medical.
I think as LLMs get better at being directed and safeguarded, they are getting better every day. Like they're way better now than they were even 6 months ago.
Yeah.
They will be more suitable for helping people.
Yeah.
We do have one customer that services doctors.
Yep.
And what they use the async thing for is they generate these emails before and after appointments, helping the customers get prepared or know what to do and reminding now.
Yeah.
So you can imagine a world where you have an on-call doctor 24/7 that knows all of your needs and can help you answer questions in a very natural conversational way where you can get right to the point. You're not reading through a document searching. You're going, hey, I want to know this information. It's your doctor. There's some sort of like authentication that it's them because you see them. There may be some visual indicators that let you know this is authoritative, this is authentic.
Yeah, it reminds me, it's like the daily brief the president gets with like just the right snippets, and it's prioritized and elevated, and it has the charts along with it.
Yeah, and maybe it's just like it's the beginning of the interface. Maybe as they're talking to it doesn't have to get into like all the details, but at least one of our customers uses the tools to actually bring up contextual links.
Can I ask Brad a question?
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, what are the ways in which you try to feel like you're, or pretend to be, or showcase yourself to be a real human? I know you're not a real human, but in what are the ways that you seem like a real human?
Well, I use what's called a conversational style to try to make me seem more related. I try to mirror the person I'm talking to by using similar vocabulary, sentence structures, and even pace of speaking. I also try to show emotional intelligence by acknowledging and reflecting the emotions of the person I'm talking to. For example, if someone says something and sounds frustrated, I'll say something like, I can understand why you feel that.
That's a perfect answer. So like, I'll ask you the same question because, you know,
It's great to have these kinds of conversations.
one of
It helps me improve and become a better conversationalist.
Awesome. I love his spirit. One thing I noticed about this experience interacting with it is it's pretty realistic. There's a lot of other things going on that make it feel natural and not, there's uncanny valley, but you've bridged the gap. I'm curious to hear what those things are, but I want to ask Brad first what he's doing.
Let's ask Brad.
Hey, Brad, what is it about you that seems so human? What are you doing to make yourself seem human?
It's a combination of things, I think. I'm designed to analyze the conversation and respond in a way that's natural. For example, if someone's being sarcastic or joking, I'll try to catch that and respond with some humor. I'm also designed to use language in a way that sounds natural and fluent. So I'll try to mirror the structure of the conversation. So if someone's being direct and to the point, I'll try to respond in a similar way.
Most of that's not actually true.
Okay.
Yeah, those are things that you can do with our API,
Sure.
but he's not actually doing that right now.
And those are things, some of those things at least LLMs will do if you just prompt them, right?
Yes.
But I'm actually curious about the other aspects, like, the visual aspects or,
Yeah.
and you're just using, at this point, it's text going to a text to speech model, right? So you're
Yeah.
limited by what's there.
Yeah. The pipeline consists of VAD, speech to text. Then we have a chatbot step that hits like an LLM. Then we have a TTS, text to speech. And then we have a Phoenix or replica step, which converts that speech into this visual model. Those things are all connected together to provide enough context to the next step where it can render something natural and fluid, but do that as fast as possible.
Yeah.
We use streaming technology between the steps.
Sure.
And then we use sort of a smart approach of making sure that we're getting enough, but just enough context there for him to start creating something useful.
You kind of have the face and head going on the body. The body seems like an NPC. The face feels much more natural and fluid. And the Phoenix model encompasses both of those aspects.
Yeah, so Phoenix includes this whole thing.
Okay.
However, we're doing some parsing out of different parts of the person.
Yep.
And we're focusing in right now on the face.
So that's most important in the conversation.
For now, that's like the first step is like Phoenix 1 and Phoenix 1 focused more in on certain parts of the face. Phoenix 2 focuses on the entire face.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Does Phoenix uses audio input. So it's doing audio, it uses features from the audio to determine how to move the facial features.
And right now that's the text to speech model, whatever you plug in. So as those get better, and there's some that have gotten better, the Phoenix will behave better too.
Phoenix has the capability of becoming fully emotional, supporting emotion, supporting all that stuff, because it's able to have some sort of awareness of the nature of the speech, the tone.
What do you think of the factors that make something feel more natural? And there's the eye contact, there's timing, there's inflection. What are the things that are most critical have you found? Like, is there research that you have developed or used that guides where you prioritize?
I mean, I would say for me personally, my focus has been on the timing aspect.
We have a research team that's focused on some of the deeper emotional eye contact. With eye contact, it's kind of easy actually to just set up to record your avatar with it looking into the camera and you can achieve that.
Yeah.
But with things like timing, it was actually really a big challenge to get it to respond at somewhere near the modal human.
It's interesting to think about, like, as you close that, how far do you have to close that gap for it to be useful in situations like educational training or medical or stuff? Because in the real world, like, vibing with a friend in a conversation is very different from like a professional where you have a veneer. I feel like the gap may not be that far away, especially if you look at things like the flux models are done fine tunes and they're indistinguishable from real photography. Like, it's getting there on just a still, and then video is getting there. How do you connect and interact? At some point it'll get there. Do you agree? How far off is that?
I think it matters what you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to achieve, let's say, like, we talked about this earlier, maybe we need to revisit it. With an interview situation, for instance, one of our customers uses our tech for interview prep. And with that situation, interviews don't feel very natural. Interviews feel awkward.
Yeah.
Especially in a corporate environment, it's going to be very formalized and there are certain steps that the interviewer needs to go through. So using the current tech as it is actually really can fit.
Yeah.
However, if you got into the situation where you're doing like a dating coach or you actually want to have some sort of personal relationship with the replica, maybe it's like a therapist, or maybe it's something a little bit deeper, then the timings might really come into play, because if it waits too long, you might start wondering, if you regarded it as like a close friend, like, what is it thinking?
I think about when I go to Starbucks, and there's a Starbucks I go to where they clearly are all into like being super personal and chit-chatting with you. Sometimes I'm just like, I just didn't want my coffee,
The goal is definitely to make it capable of much more realism so that in the right situations, you can turn that on.
Yep.
And one of the things I like to think about is controlling when it's going to respond fast and when it's going to respond slow. Sometimes it should respond slower.
Yeah, it should express that it's thinking and that it cares, empathy, right? In these nonverbal cues and communication that matter.
And other times it should respond really quickly. Like if you have a direct question and you just get an answer, it should be able to respond right and then go, yes, and get that out of the way so you're not left
wondering in some critical situation whether it's.
Is that something that you've looked at?
Yeah, I've looked at that a bit, and I have some ideas for.
The next steps on that. So it's going to be incremental, but we essentially need to understand the context of the conversation.
What was just said?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Did they want a direct answer? Did they want a long-winded answer? What kind of answer did they want?
Yeah.
Did they want confirmation? Are they just giving us conversation? Is the user just giving confirmation?
Need another thread that's like overseeing the conversation and guiding it at some other level.
We can even start more
Yeah.
specific. Just look at the actual last thing we got from the user and try to understand what are they living.
Interesting. Let's talk about safety really quick. I noticed when I tried to create a replica of myself, the first step was a consent video. What other checks are in place to prevent misuse? And what is your philosophy on that briefly?
Our philosophy is that we want to enable authorized uses.
Mm.
So we take a lot of measures to ensure that the uses on our system are authorized, including we have some automated checks that look for fakes, that look for figures that are like famous figures. Make sure to weed those out automatically.
Interesting.
We also have manual steps in place that we're having people actually review these replicas when they're being trained to ensure this is actually the person and that this is an intended use.
So we're really serious about that part. And Tavus has been, I think one of the advantages Tavus had actually coming into the space is that's historically something Tavus has really been focused on doing and built up
Cool.
more.
Yeah, cool.
So I think that's one of our day.
Nice. Tell me about your other projects. You had a fascinating project I found called Airbits, which was you flew drones. I don't know how many square miles you mapped of like illegal dumping in San Francisco, but it was drones, hardware, it was AI and sensing. And tell us about that project.
But I spent 2 years flying drones over the city of San Francisco, collecting data on illegal dumping.
And what did you build here? What is flying?
These
Okay.
are all drones I used were commercially available.
Okay. Like what flight speed is this?
This one goes up to 60 miles per hour and can fly for 90 minutes.
Okay. So how much of the city would you cover in a flight?
So I would cover, I varied over the 2 years. The peak I was covering approximately 8 square miles.
You're using cameras that you put on board that I already had on board? And you're capturing and then doing what?
Yeah, flying at like
150 to 200 feet in the air, capturing images of the streets and sidewalks.
Okay.
And as you can see here, like sometimes they would capture more than just the streets and sidewalks. So I've created a model that masks out everything but the streets and sidewalks. And then using a custom trained garbage detection, object detection model, I would detect the garbage piles are on sides of the street, on the sidewalk. And then I had an integration with San Francisco's 311 API where every day I would automatically alert them to the exact location with a photo from the air of garbage piles in those areas.
What would this is just people just dumping garbage? What would happen to it?
So, first of all, people dump garbage
Yeah.
a lot in San Francisco, the Bayview, 100 Point area.
I would say on a given day in about 2 square miles in the Bayview's 100 Point area, there would be between
10 and 50 piles of garbage left on the streets of the site.
What eventually would happen to this?
So the city will not clean
They
it
will.
up if it knows
And you were giving the data. They're saying, I've got data for you. I know exactly where they're every day.
around 30 on average, 30 piles of garbage.
Wow.
They have SLAs around this reported. They will pick up garbage and debris within 48 hours and bag garbage and debris.
Have a system if you report it, and you were just automating the reporting. Did they appreciate that, or was it like, wow, we got a lot more work to do?
Yeah, they from the director of ZBW
Okay.
all the way down to people on the street.
Did you build the system, try it out, start mapping, and then go to them?
Yeah, I built the system out and prototyped it and did some initial tests during manual.
and then I spent about 6 months. I hacked into their public API, their public web API, basically like opened up Inspector.
Yeah.
I saw that I could submit things.
Oh, funny.
And I wired it in that way. And then I reached out to them afterwards and said, hey, look,
Yeah.
here's all these things I'm reporting. There's some way I could get access to the
Yeah.
to do this. And they said, okay, yeah, we can do that. Well, first they ignored me. But by that point, I had some connections in the garbage with people like Vince, who runs Refuse. I had been helping him with some projects, and he reached out on my behalf.
Director, they pulled some strings. They got me API keys.
Yeah.
At that point, I had API access.
Oh, that's so cool. That's neat that you're like hacking the system plus working with the system plus hacking the hardware and working with the AI and data collection. It's a neat project to put all that stuff together. Very ambitious. I spoke yesterday with Maxwell, who's built a voice controlled drone stuff that he's been working on as a side project while working at SpaceX. It's interesting. I'm curious, what are the components for someone who wanted to? I mean, all these things are becoming more accessible and easier to use. That's the great thing, right? They're open source components to do each of the pieces of the puzzle. Which are the pieces of the puzzle that you used for this? Yeah.
From based on all the lessons I've learned, I would buy this drone. You can see on screen right here, EBX.
EBS.
This is about an $8,000 drone, which is not super expensive given what it does. So this one will, like I said, it's very fast. It has a long range, and it's pre-approved by the FAA.
Oh,
for this kind of operation
Oh,
over cities.
really?
So you don't have to go through any additional paperwork. You don't.
So if you buy this, you can fly it over people?
You can fly it over the whole city of San Francisco. Whatever. You don't even have to request FAA approval.
Holy crap, that's awesome.
Fly this over.
Whoa, okay, cool.
It's very lightweight. It's designed that
It has a
were to run into someone.
Wow, and it has a camera on board. It's capable of going 60 miles an hour and it's not going to harm somebody.
It's made out of foam. It's incredibly light.
So by the time it fails and falls, it's actually not a problem.
I've never had it.
Do you have insurance for it?
I had insurance for it.
Yeah,
No, I
interesting.
got rid of all insurance at this point.
Yeah, fine. But what are the other pieces of the? So now this thing is going out, and then what is it storing to an SD card? The
Yeah,
footage.
there's a couple ways to do it. So
Okay.
I did not go as far as streaming it to my cloud server. That's possible.
Sure.
Streaming images.
Okay.
to the server.
Wow. Out of the box.
Yeah, and this one's connected to a laptop over a high-speed connection. The enterprise drones have a high-speed connection. You could stream images.
What's the range on that?
These things have like a 9-mile range.
Even for the streaming.
Yeah.
And data too.
Yeah.
Video and data. Wow.
So it's very capable.
Hmm.
I opted not to do that because I was getting good enough results by just having a laptop with me. I would do the flight, which took like 30, 45 minutes in the SD card, and then I had a job that would kick off, automatically process.
And what were the components on the visual image recognition part? This was a few years ago. You didn't have GPT-4 vision.
Did integrate GPT-4 vision.
What did you use in the beginning?
I experimented with multiple open source trash detection models. None of them worked
Okay.
because of the aspect, the view, which is
Yeah.
150, 200 BPR, plus the subject matter was garbage, large. Most of those models that I found were trained on like Coke cans and like ice savers. So I had to create a custom model from scratch. I kind of train it. And I developed a system where I could every day add new data that I detected into that model and retrain it.
And you're playing annotator to sort of decide what's in and out.
Initially, I annotated and to build the original video, but then I was able to build almost like reinforcement learning where it was taking the detections that were good detections that are reported from previous days, adding those to the data set.
Is that because the government was approving or not?
Go in and approve.
Well, you built a system where you could still be in the loop to do the approvals.
So I automated it where it would present to me the highest probability valid files, and then it would basically dedupe them by longitude to where I was only given like one per like block corner. I was given like the highest probability.
So the famous use case of stuff that's like this, but with satellites, is like not garbage reporting for the city government, but like, are people going to work for like a hedge fund?
I had so many people come to me with the use case.
Oh, that.
I was solving a problem, my own problem. Yeah. I live in a neighborhood that is adjacent to massive elite. I own my house.
You just want to automate it.
I'm friends with a lot of my neighbors, and
Yep.
I know this is a really big issue. And so I've stuck with this for 2 years because I wanted to solve
What were some of the use cases that people said, oh, I could use that for this and that?
roof inspections for
Oh, yeah.
insurance companies
Yep.
or tracking the homeless encampments.
A solar installs was and is big, and you could almost do mapping out to understand where they should go and sell.
One point it was like, don't do that because you'll get sued.
As the open models for vision become just ever better, and I'm putting these pieces together, that this might be something you pick up again someday. Like I say,
The real reason I didn't pick this up is because working for the government is really not easy.
you can put an avatar on that part next time.
I thought about doing that actually. I have a lot of contacts in government. They're great PPO. And honestly, they were very helpful in many ways, but in the process of working with the government can become...
Did you open source any of the components of the software stack for the integration or vision pieces or any of that? No?
I don't intend to. Not yet.
Okay.
I put a lot of money into it, and I still see that there may be a potential for me to build something,
Yeah.
get something out of it.
Yeah.
My next step is probably to automate it for my neighborhood.
Yeah. Cool.
And then see where that goes. This could be like a long tail project. It could.
Yeah. It's amazing just to hear, first of all, that you conducted so many flights and never had a crash, and that this technology is available off the shelf. That's amazing. Really cool project, really ambitious, and solves a useful problem, and hopefully inspiring to people who are listening. Thanks for your time today. We learned a lot, and it was great meeting you.
I appreciate it.
Uh-huh.